You have about 30 minutes to answer each question. You must take account of how many marks are available for each part when you answer it, even if you think you can write more. Don't spend 15 minutes answering a part worth only 5 marks. Leave space at the end of your answer and come back to it if you have time to spare later. And if you can't think of an answer to some part, leave a space and move on to the next part. Don't write about something else if you don't know the correct answer. This is just a waste of your valuable time.
Although for centuries preparations derived from living matter were applied to wounds to destroy infection, the fact that a microorganism is capable of destroying one of another species was not established until the latter half of the 19th century, when Pasteur noted the antagonistic effect of other bacteria on the anthrax organism and pointed out that this action might be put to therapeutic use.
This exciting new MA in creative writing is designed for graduates who wish to examine and expand their work. Through workshops, seminars, and individual tutorials, students will discover new writing strategies and refine their writing. The course offers students the practical expertise needed for researching and structuring texts, and understanding traditions and genres, as well as the critical and creative proficiencies necessary to develop a career in creative writing or in a related field.
Employers often offer employees perks in addition to cash wages, for example, membership of a health insurance or company pension scheme. If they do, they must ensure that they are fair in providing these benefits in order to avoid discrimination. For instance, if an employer includes an entitlement to low-interest loans in male, but not female, employees' contracts, the female employees could take the employer to court on the basis of inequality.
Very intelligent people often make the mistake of assuming that other people's minds work in the same way as theirs do. Economists, for example, create mathematically based models on the notion that people act rationally as far as their own economic interests are concerned. You don't have to look much further than family and friends to see how off the mark this idea is. The problem with a lot of such scientifically based theories is that they're not friendly to facts that don't fit the case.
What is it about Americans and food? We love to eat, but we feel guilty about it afterward. We say we want only the best, but we strangely enjoy junk food. We're obsessed with health and weight loss but face an unprecedented epidemic of obesity. Perhaps the answer to this ambivalence lies in our history. The first Europeans came to this continent searching for new spices but went in vain. The first cash crop wasn't eaten but smoked. Then there was prohibition, intended to prohibit drinking but actually encouraging more creative ways of doing it. The immigrant experience, too, has been one of inharmony. Do as Romans do means eating what real Americans eat, but our nation's food has come to be defined by imports, pizza, say, or hot dogs. And some of the country's most treasured cooking comes from people who arrived here in shackles.
Perhaps it should come as no surprise then that food has been a medium for the nation's defining struggles, whether at the Boston Tea Party or the sit-ins at Southern lunch counters. It is integral to our concepts of health and even morality whether one refrains from alcohol for religious reasons or evades meat for political ideals. But strong opinions have not brought certainty. Americans are ambivalent about what they put in their mouths. We have become suspicious of our foods, especially as we learn more about what they contain. The ritual of food is still prosperous in the American consciousness. It's no coincidence, then, that the first Thanksgiving holds the American imagination in such bondage. It's what we eat, and how we share it with friends, family, and strangers, that help define America as a community today.
Wise buying is a positive way in which you can make your money go further. The way you go about purchasing an article or a service can actually save you money or can add to the cost. Take the simple example of a hairdryer. If you are buying a hairdryer, you might think that you are making the best buy if you choose one whose look you like and which is also the cheapest in price. But when you get it home you may find that it takes twice as long as a more expensive model to dry your hair. The cost of the electricity plus the cost of your time could well make your hairdryer the most expensive one of all.
Fortunately, educators have access to many online resources that are especially useful when helping children along the path to peace. The Young Peacemakers Club, started in 1992, provides a website with resources for teachers and information on starting a kindness campaign. The World Centers of Compassion for Children International call attention to children's rights and how to help the victims of war. Starting a Peacemakers Club is a praiseworthy venture for a class and one that could spread to other classrooms and ideally affect the culture of the entire school.
Attempts to apply psychological theories to education can falter on the translation of the theory into educational practice. Often, this translation is not clear. Therefore, when a program does not succeed, it is not clear whether the lack of success was due to the inadequacy of the theory or the inadequacy of the implementation of the theory. A set of basic principles for translating a theory into practice can help clarify just what an educational implementation should, and should not, look like. This article presents 12 principles for translating a triarchic theory of successful intelligence into educational practice.
Now that doesn't mean that plainness is the only good style, or that you should become a slave to spare, unadorned writing. Formality and ornateness have their place, and in competent hands complexity can carry us on a dizzying, breathtaking journey. But most students, most of the time, should strive to be sensibly simple, to develop a baseline style of short words, active verbs, and relatively simple sentences conveying clear actions or identities. It's faster, it makes arguments easier to follow, it increases the chances a busy reader will bother to pay attention, and it lets you focus more attention on your moments of rhetorical flourish, which I do not advise abandoning altogether.
Surely, reality is what we think it is. Reality is revealed to us by our experiences. To one extent or another, this view of reality is one many of us hold, if only implicitly. I certainly find myself thinking this way in day-to-day life. It's easy to be seduced by the face nature reveals directly to our senses. Yet, in the decades since first encountering Camus' text, I've learned that modern science tells a very different story.
The first banks were probably the religious temples of the ancient world, and were probably established sometime during the 3rd millennium BC. Banks probably predated the invention of money. Deposits initially consisted of grain and later other goods including cattle, agricultural implements, and eventually precious metals such as gold, in the form of easy-to-carry compressed plates. Temples and palaces were the safest places to store gold as they were constantly attended and well built. As sacred places, temples presented an extra deterrent to would-be thieves.
Music is an important part of our lives. We connect and interact with it daily and use it as a way of projecting our self-identities to the people around us. The music we enjoy, whether it's country or classical, rock and roll or rap, reflects who we are. But where did music, at its core, first come from? It's a puzzling question that may not have a definitive answer. One leading researcher, however, has proposed that the key to understanding the origin of music is nestled snugly in the loving bond between mother and child. In a lecture at the University of Melbourne, Richard Parnkett, an Australian-born professor of systematic musicology, endorsed the idea that music originally spawned from Mothrie's the playful voices mothers adopt when speaking to infants and toddlers. As the theory goes, increased human brain sizes caused by evolutionary changes occurring between 1 and 2 million years ago resulted in earlier births, more fragile infants and a critical need for stronger relationships between mothers and their newborn babies. According to Parnkett, who was based at the University of Graz in Austria, Mothrie's arose as a way to strengthen this maternal bond and to help ensure an infant's survival.
chemicals used to control weeds in crops such as corn and soybeans may sometimes run off farmland and enter surface water bodies such as lakes and streams. If a surface water body that is used as a drinking water supply receives excess amounts of these herbicides, then the municipal water treatment plant must filter them out in order for the water to be safe to drink. This added filtration process can be expensive. Farmers can help control excess herbicides and runoff by choosing chemicals that bind with soil more readily, are less toxic, or degrade more quickly. Additionally, selecting the best tillage practice can help minimize herbicide pollution.
In these distant times the sun was seen to make its daily journey across the sky. At night the moon appeared. Every new night the moon waxed or waned a little, and on a few nights it did not appear at all. At night the great dome of the heavens was dotted with tiny specks of light. They became known as the stars. It was felt that every star in the heavens had its own purpose and that the secrets of the universe could be discovered by making a study of them. It was well known that there were wandering stars. They appeared in different nightly positions against their neighbors and they became known as planets. It took centuries, in fact it took millennia, for man to determine the true nature of these wandering stars and to evolve a model of the world to accommodate them and to predict their positions in the sky.
It's that time again. Exams looming, essays or reports outstanding, and you wonder where the year's gone already. You start wondering how you're going to cope with it all. A limited amount of anxiety can help you to be more motivated and more purposeful. It can help you to plan your work and to think more clearly and logically about it. In other words, it can help you stay on top of things. Sit down at your desk and make a start on writing down all the things you have to do to prepare for the exams.
Steven Pinker, a cognitive psychologist best known for his book The Language Instinct, has called music auditory cheesecake, an exquisite confection crafted to tickle the sensitive spots of at least 6 of our mental faculties. If it vanished from our species, he said, the rest of our lifestyle would be virtually unchanged. Others have argued that, on the contrary, music, along with art and literature, is part of what makes people human. Its absence would have a brutalizing effect. Philip Ball, a British science writer and an avid music enthusiast, comes down somewhere in the middle. He says that music is ingrained in our auditory, cognitive and motor functions. We have a music instinct as much as a language instinct, and could not rid ourselves of it if we tried.
One thing is certain. Most people do not get enough exercise in their ordinary routines. All of the advances of modern technology, from electric can openers to power steering, have made life easier, more comfortable and much less physically demanding. Yet our bodies need activity, especially if they are carrying around too much fat. Satisfying this need requires a definite plan, and a commitment.
The writer or, for that matter, the speaker conceives his thought whole, as a unity, but must express it in a line of words. The reader or listener must take this line of symbols and from it reconstruct the original wholeness of thought. There is little difficulty in conversation, because the listener receives innumerable cues from the physical expressions of the speaker. There is a dialogue, and the listener can cut in at any time. The advantage of group discussion is that people can overcome linear sequence of words by converging on ideas from different directions, which makes for wholeness of thought. But the reader is confronted by line upon line of printed symbols, without benefits of physical tone and emphasis or the possibility of dialogue or discussion.
The UW course descriptions are updated regularly during the academic year. All announcements in the general catalog and course catalog are subject to change without notice and do not constitute an agreement between the University of Washington and the student. Students should assume the responsibility of consulting the appropriate academic unit or advisor for more current or specific information.
Psychology as a subject of study has largely developed in the West since the late 19th century. During this period there has been an emphasis on scientific thinking. Because of this emphasis, there have been many scientific studies in psychology which explore different aspects of human nature. These include studies into how biology, physical factors, influence human experience, how people use their senses, touch, taste, smell, sight and hearing, to get to know the world, how people develop, why people behave in certain ways, how memory works, how people develop language, how people understand and think about the world, what motivates people, why people have emotions and how personality develops. These scientific investigations all contribute to an understanding of human nature.
The logic of the scientific method was set out by John Stuart Mill in 1843 and was named the method of difference. A simple example of what he meant by this is to take two glasses of water which are identical in every respect. Introduce a few drops of ink into one of these glasses. The water changes color. According to Mill's method of difference, it is safe to assume that the change in the color of the water is due to the introduction of a new factor, the independent variable in this case, the ink.
The National Portrait Gallery's Conservation Department performs one of the gallery's core functions, the long-term preservation of all collection items, to make them accessible now and in future. The collection dates from the 8th century to the present day, and consists of portraits in a variety of media, so the gallery employs conservators with expertise in a range of disciplines, including framing, painting, paper, sculpture and photography.
Elements of both the psychoanalytic and behaviorist theories are arranged in modern approaches to personality. Advances in neuroscience have begun to bridge the gap between biochemistry and behavior, but there is still a great deal that needs to be explained. Without a consistent understanding of personality, how can we begin to categorize risk takers? If we cannot, we will be unable to compare their genes with those of others.